Hello, I'm Ember Conley, host for Political Peaks. Today, I'm joined by Darren Parry, who is running for District 1 Congress. Welcome to the show, Mr. Parry.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to speak with the people of Park City. I love that area.
Well, thank you. And that really brings to the first question is District 1 is large. It includes parts of Davis County, Box Elder, all the way to Daggett, of course, Summit, Uinta. It's a very, very large district and one that is extremely diverse. And so as I was reading some of your information, there's a quote that you said. It says, "Those who have gone before him are not forgotten," and that's really been your mission as why you want to be able to make an impact in Utah. So talk to us a little bit around what your background is and what your passion is for running for Congress.
Well, thank you. I grew up in the first district. So I was born and raised in Syracuse, Utah. My father was the director of Indian Affairs for the state of Utah for 18 years. He was an educator. I went into education. My sisters have all gone into education. So that's really the basis for who we are. As I got married, I moved to Ogden area, Weber County, which is part of the first district. And now I live in Cache Valley in Providence. And so Cache Valley was the home to the Shoshone Nation. And for the last few years, I've been fortunate enough to serve as the tribal chairman. It's important that those ancestors that went before us are never forgotten. And so I'm just honored to be able to run for Congress. I think it's time that we maybe have a Native American leader. We may have to go back to our old ways to fix some of the problems today on how we honor the land, how we honor the climate, and making sure that everything we do is sustainable. There's a wonderful Iroquois quote that I love. And the Iroquois leadership never made a decision without thinking about 7 generations ahead and what that decision would be and how it would affect people 7 generations in the future. And what a beautiful concept that is. And I think it's about time we maybe start looking at that as a playbook and how we can go forward.
Well, you certainly have the background in leadership, being a tribal chairman, being raised in a family with leaders. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about policy. And as we look at Utah, being very strong with our economy and industry and education, talk to me a little bit about the policy changes or the policy revisions that you would like to see in Utah if you were to become elected.
Well, I used to think that when I started this campaign, it was before all the craziness hit, and I thought about climate change being my top priority and the environment, and they still are. But having gone through COVID-19 and seeing a lot of people struggle, I've kind of pivoted just to the point that we need to take care of people. And I know about that because my people have been marginalized forever. And so what I see now, I see people without jobs, see people without adequate health care, especially in rural communities. And so some of the policy decisions I would make, I think our education system needs to have more funding. From the federal side, I'd just like to see the federal government stay out of the way of the states. Let states dictate because they know best how to educate their children. And so I would love to help get the money to them and let them make the decisions. We need to do a better job with our healthcare system, making sure that everyone has adequate health care, and especially to the marginalized. I was part of a group that has been sending PPE and other supplies to the Navajo Nation who have been hard hit. When you think about it, I had somebody ask me the other day, well, why are they hard hit? And I'm going, well, they have no running water, they have no electricity, and we live in the year 2020, and that still is a big factor today. And so when you don't have those things, you don't have access to health care.
That's right.
And so when you don't have access to health care, then it's a problem. And so the other thing is a lot of the district is rural. I would love to make sure that all of our rural communities have access to high-speed internet. With that, you have educational opportunities, you have job opportunities, and you have access to telehealth. You have health care. And so those are some of the policy things that I'd love to get going as soon as I get back in Washington, D.C.
That's fantastic. And you really already kind of hit on the idea of COVID and how it's impacted our rural communities. And so looking at what you just talked about with internet connectivity, there's some information coming out just around that there's not enough workers to even be able to put in the high speed. What are some things that you think Utah could be innovative around getting access to internet, and which of course that you just talked about, then having access to healthcare and education?
Well, it's all about funding. So I know there's not enough workers to do a lot of these things, but I know if you have adequate funding and you provide companies with that, the money, things get done. And especially when we're talking about rural communities, it's important that elected leaders from the federal government side work with local county commissioners and work with them to see how best to serve and get that information and how we get that infrastructure to each community, because every community is different. So it's important that the federal government doesn't make decisions for those in the state of Utah, that it's a collaborative effort between the feds and the states and how we can best work together for those individual communities.
Well, and we're going to be closing out the interview, but talk to me for our last final discussion around what you've learned, of course, being a Native American and having that Native American way and being able to solve problems.
My culture has taught me that the lessons of those that went before us are important, and how they honored the land, how they honored people. Native Americans didn't have any concept of personal property, and so they took care of one another. Those are Utah values, where we take care of the one another, and especially the marginalized, those people that have a hard time taking care of themselves. And so that's my mission, to get back to the old ways, maybe to solve the problems of today. And I'm just honored to be able to maybe share my message and be a part of that.
Well, I think we believe deeply the same way around respect and then being able to work together to solve really complex problems that we're facing. And I want to thank you so much. It's just such a tremendous honor to be able to talk with you today, be able to learn more about you. And I really wish you the best of luck. I know that sometimes these races can be rather brutal, and so just best of luck and staying safe and healthy.
Hey, thank you very much, and I hope you all stay safe as well. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm Member Conley, host for Political Pleaks. Please join me very soon to continue our discussion around those running for District 1 Congress, representing Summit County for the state of Utah.